Swapping to Tubeless is pretty popular these days. Reducing rotating weight and no longer dealing with pinch flats are major draws, as well as being able to say that you run Tubeless, of course. And cracking open a cold one for the boys on quarantine is a must. Every bike is different, but on my Nuke Proof, a 6mm Allen key takes care of the front 15mm axle. Make sure to put both parts somewhere where you may never find them again. And a 5mm Allen for the rear 12mm axle. Dropping the rear wheel out the back is always a bit tricky, and shifting into the highest gear does help, but I didn't do that. On your bike, you may have a QR or a quick release skewer, which in my opinion is easier to take on and off due to the fact that you don't have to actually take the axle out. You may want to scrub your derailleur at this point too. Mine's just loose and sandy. Tubeless tires are a must. The rubber is a different compound and has a bead. It will say tubeless on it. To do the swap, first let air out of the tire. This is a Presta valve. You may also see Schrader valves like on cars, but for mountain biking, either one is fine. And if you're having trouble, use a plastic tire lever to help pop the bead off the rim. Although I find they can tear up my bead if I use them too often. In the middle of the rim, there's a valley that the bead can fall into and give the tire room to come off the rim. To go tubeless, you must have tubeless tires and rims, i.e. rims with a bead and this tape. You can tape this yourself if you need, and Gorilla Tape does work, however it leaves a mess. Also, the valve hole is a specific size to accept Schrader or Presta. You will have leaks if you use Presta valves on Schrader ports. Some type of sealant is needed, and valves. You cannot cut the valves out of your inner tubes and use those, and also avoid valves with threads that start partway up the valve like these Bontrager valves. These are not good. Avoid these. Tires are designed to rotate a specific way, so be mindful of that. And I have to stand next to my bike to visualize the way the tires turn when the bike moves to get the rotation correct. Put the rim in between the beads and put it on that way. It's easier. Work the bead around till one side is on, and take the valve, unscrew the cap and the nut all the way off, and feed the valve through the hole. Thread the nut on, and use your thumb to press down on the other side as sort of a preload to the valve as you thread the nut on. As tight as you can get it by hand should be tight enough. If not, and it's still leaking, something else is going on. There are essentially three options when seating the bead. The floor pump, which is a potentially labor-intensive way to do it, and if the bead is loose, impossible. Option 2 is a pressurized air canister like this air shot that holds a predetermined amount of air pressure, pressurized via the floor pump, and let all out at once via a release valve. This does work, however, it can be finicky. And the easiest way by far is the air compressor and Presta chuck. Instant readout on pressure and unlimited air as long as the compressor can keep up. Okay, pour in the amount of sealant that seems right. I don't really measure, and Stans recommends 2 to 3 ounces for a 2.4 width tire. There are measurements on the bottle, but I just pour a bunch in. You're going to want to work the tire around till it gets to a tight point, rotate the opening towards you, and pop the bead in place. Attach your air filler-upper of choice, and go to town. You'll hear a pop if it's seated correctly. For these tires, I go up to about 40 psi and let them sit at that for a bit. Tighten up your valve and check that the line that goes around your tire to ensure that the bead is set evenly. I like to slosh the fluid around, and then you're done. But say you want to not take the whole tire off. Well, it's pretty easy. Just deflate, break the bead, push the valve through, and take the tube out. Install the valve, work the bead around till it's tight, pour in the sealant, pop the bead over, and fill her up. Easy day. At this point, you're going to want to reinstall your front wheel and your rear wheel. For this, I like to use a torque wrench to set my wheels to 10 Newton meters. The wrench is optional, and if you don't have one, just snug it up. You should be fine. Or if you're on quick release, you don't have to worry about it.
What do you do when you run out of things to do, Reed?
If I run out of things to do, I will end up doing something else. I guess I'll just keep doing whatever random thing I feel like. Thanks for watching.